My name is Grant Whitaker. I'm the founder and CEO of Whitaker Properties, one of the fastest-growing real estate companies in the Southeast. At 42, my life looked picture-perfect from the outside. Mansions, luxury cars, private jets, tailored suits, and a daughter I adored more than the world itself. But behind all that was a man quietly drowning. I didn't always have wealth. My father was a mechanic. My mother worked in a grocery store. I was the first in my family to finish college, and I did it with 2 jobs and a scholarship I almost lost 3 times. When I finally made my first million flipping commercial buildings, it didn't feel like success. It felt like survival. Like I was running from the past I was terrified would catch up. Then, everything shifted. The day my wife, Naomi, died in a car accident, a part of me died too. But I didn't have time to grieve. I had Alara, our daughter. She was just 6. Beautiful, bright, always humming to herself, always asking questions. A month after the funeral, Alara began complaining about headaches and seeing shadows. We ran tests, CT scans, specialists. The diagnosis came like a wrecking ball: Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy.
Rare. Progressive.
No cure. Within 3 months, she was completely blind. People praised me for staying strong, for holding it all together. But they didn't see the guilt I carried. I had all the money in the world, but not a single cent could buy her sight back. So I tried to control what I could. Her days were carefully planned. Specialized tutors, advanced therapy sessions, elite caregivers. I had everything structured down to the minute. It gave me the illusion I was doing something, being a good father. But I was managing her like a business, not loving her like a daughter. It wasn't until that hot Wednesday afternoon in Atlanta that my eyes finally opened. We were overseeing a new construction site on Auburn Avenue. A 15-story luxury condo was going up, and I was there to inspect progress. My team was behind schedule, and I was snapping at the project manager, pacing the site with a tablet in one hand and a coffee in the other. That's when I saw her, Alara, sitting on a bench near the worksite fence, legs swinging, backpack on her lap. My heart skipped. She was supposed to be at therapy with her mobility coach. My driver must have dropped her off early by mistake. I started walking toward her when I noticed someone kneeling in front of her. A tall man in a faded orange construction vest, steel-toe boots coated in dust, hard hat pushed back slightly. His skin glistened with sweat. He had rough hands and a face that looked like it had weathered 100 summers. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't one of my regular foremen. He held a small packet, looked like a snack bar, and was gently unwrapping it. "You want the strawberry one?" he asked, voice deep and soothing. Alara nodded, her tiny fingers reaching out cautiously. He placed the bar in her hand with care, like it was sacred. I didn't move. Something in me froze, my usual instincts, my CEO brain, my protective father's radar. All of it paused, because what I saw wasn't some strange man feeding my daughter. I saw kindness. The way he watched her with patience. The way he let her guide the moment. He didn't treat her like she was broken. He treated her like she mattered. She bit into the snack and smiled. A wide, genuine, unfiltered grin. One I hadn't seen in months. The man sat back on his heels, laughing softly. "You got good taste." Alara said, "You sound like cinnamon." He raised an eyebrow. "Cinnamon?
Warm.
Like how it smells when my mom used to bake cookies." I felt something collapse in my chest. That little girl had lost so much, but here she was, giving joy to a stranger on a sidewalk like it cost her nothing. I finally stepped forward. "Hey there," I called out, forcing a neutral tone. The man stood instantly, brushing dust from his jeans. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, recognizing me immediately. "Apologies." She said she was hungry. I had a break, figured it wouldn't hurt. I looked at Alara. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here alone?" The driver dropped me early. I heard people talking and followed the voices. I was bored. I nodded, then turned to the man. "What's your name?" "Isaiah Cole," he said, offering a handshake. "I'm with the concrete crew." His grip was firm, respectful. "Thank you," I muttered, still unsure what to make of the moment. I appreciate you helping her. No need to thank me, he said. She's easy to like. We stood there a moment longer, awkward silence hanging between us. Then Isaiah tipped his hard hat, gave Alara a small wave, and returned to the site. But I didn't forget him. That night, after tucking Alara into bed, I poured myself a scotch and sat on the balcony. I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I'd been so focused on providing everything I thought she needed, education, therapy, structure, that I missed what she actually needed. Human connection. Someone who didn't pity her.
Who saw her.
Heard her. Treated her like a person, not a diagnosis. And I couldn't ignore the man who gave that to her in a 10-minute snack break. A construction worker. Covered in sweat. No pedigree. No fancy title. Just kindness. I stared out at the city skyline, my empire glowing in the night. And for the first time in a long while, I wondered if I was building the right kind of legacy. I made a decision then. The kind I hadn't made in years. I was going to talk to Isaiah Cole. Really talk. Because I had a feeling he hadn't just changed Alara's afternoon. He might have changed everything. The next morning, I arrived on site earlier than usual. My crew was surprised to see me in jeans and no entourage. But I wasn't there to supervise. I was looking for one man. I found him by the south scaffolding, lifting cement bags like they weighed nothing. Isaiah Cole.
Calm.
Focused. The kind of man who didn't waste time looking busy. He was just busy. Isaiah. I called out. He turned, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his forearm. Mr. Whitaker, he said, straightening up. Something wrong? No, I said. I owe you a proper thank you. Got a minute? He glanced at the foreman, who gave a nod. Isaiah dropped the bag and walked over. His steps were slow, almost cautious. I gestured toward the chain-link gate. You like coffee? He blinked. Free coffee. I chuckled. You've earned more than that. A few blocks down, we sat in a modest diner. The kind where the furniture's outdated, but the biscuits are legendary. I ordered black coffee. Isaiah got sweet tea. Said he didn't like coffee unless it tasted like dessert. So, I began. You really didn't know who she was? Alara, he asked. No idea. I just saw a kid alone, blind, hungry. Felt wrong to ignore that. His voice was steady, unshaken by the idea of talking to someone like me. No flattery. No nervousness. Just real. You knew she was blind? He nodded. Her eyes moved like my sister's. Different kind of focus. She listens more than she looks. My little sister lost her sight at 10. Retinitis pigmentosa. Is she doing okay? She's tough. Teaches music now. Still cusses me out when I call too late. That made me laugh. You said you were from Detroit? I asked. He nodded again. Born and raised. East Side. Mom was a janitor. Dad wasn't around. I dropped out at 16 to help with bills. Been working job to job ever since. Why Atlanta? He took a sip of tea. More work. Fewer blizzards. Better for the bones. I paused. The man had jokes.
And depth.
The more he spoke, the more I realized how much life this man had lived without a spotlight. I saw you drawing yesterday, I said. Blueprints. He hesitated. Just ideas. I sketch things sometimes. Stuff that might make the site safer, faster. But no one's asking me for innovations. You study design?
No, sir.
Just learned watching and doing. Trial and error. I read manuals. Watch YouTube tutorials. I guess I'm curious. It was more than curiosity. The notebook I saw had real substance. Perspective. Structural logic. Isaiah wasn't just building someone else's dream. He had ideas of his own. Ideas that were buried under hard labor and low expectations. And I knew that feeling. Before I became Grant Whitaker, the millionaire, I was the janitor's son who got laughed out of investor meetings, who got told no 47 times before someone finally gave me $20,000 to flip my first warehouse. You ever pitch your ideas? I asked. He shook his head. People see this, he said, holding up his calloused hands, and assume this. He tapped his temple. Ain't worth much. His honesty stunned me. I leaned forward. Let me ask you something. If you had the opportunity, resources, mentorship, everything, what would you do with it? He didn't answer right away. His jaw clenched slightly. His eyes dropped to the table. Then he said quietly, I'd build something that gives people like me a way out. I felt my chest tighten, because that's exactly what I had said to my wife 15 years ago. Back when I was broke and hungry and certain the world only listened to people in suits. Isaiah, I said, I want to show you something. We left the diner and headed to one of my offices uptown. The elevators were glass, the halls silent, the floors spotless. Isaiah looked out of place, but not because of anything he lacked, because the place lacked him. Inside my office, I handed him a tablet loaded with internal models, workforce retention reports, and something I had designed years ago but never implemented, an internal growth initiative for site laborers with no degrees. I called it Lifeline. No one wanted to touch it, I said. Said it was too risky. Too idealistic. Isaiah studied it quietly. It's not idealistic, he said. It's overdue. That's when I made the call. I told HR and my executive team I wanted to pilot Lifeline. Not with safe candidates from admin or management, but starting with Isaiah Cole. There was backlash, of course. Questions about experience. About credentials. But I didn't flinch. Because when I watched Isaiah speak with Alara, when I saw him kneel in dust to feed my daughter with dignity, I realized something. Leadership isn't built in boardrooms. It's built in moments of character. I invited Isaiah to shadow one of my site engineers. Gave him access to evening courses. Assigned him a mentor from our design team. The man who once carried bricks was now designing blueprints. But Isaiah wasn't just learning. He was thriving. The crew noticed. His foreman said productivity improved just by having him lead morning meetings. He had a way of making people feel seen, heard, valued. One night, a month into his new role, he sent me a text. If someone had told me last year I'd be here, I would have laughed. Thank you for seeing me. But he had it wrong. He saw us. He saw through the noise, through status, through doubt. And for the first time in years, I was seeing again too. Because sometimes, it takes a man covered in concrete dust to remind a billionaire what vision really looks like. 3 months passed. And Isaiah, well, he didn't just grow. He transformed. I remember walking into a development meeting in our Midtown tower. It was the usual sea of blazers, polished shoes, and executives glued to tablets. Except that day, someone new was standing at the whiteboard.
Isaiah.
He wasn't presenting a report. He was telling a story. We lose 5 minutes per hour per worker crossing zones for tools, he explained, gesturing to a rough schematic he'd reworked himself. It sounds small, but across 90 workers over 6 months, that's 2,250 man-hours lost. What if we restructured supply points? The room was silent. He wasn't speaking like a laborer trying to impress suits. He spoke like a man who knew what it was to sweat in the trenches and could think like a strategist. After the meeting, my head engineer approached me. This guy, he said, nodding toward Isaiah, has instincts you can't teach in classrooms. He sees what most architects miss. And that was the moment I knew something even bigger was happening. Isaiah wasn't just an employee on the rise. He was becoming a leader others naturally followed. And the best part? He never forgot where he came from. While most newly promoted interns spend their free time adjusting to their new perks, Isaiah returned to the site every weekend, not because he had to, but because his boys were still there, grinding under the sun. He organized a rotating breakfast initiative for the early crew. Nothing fancy, just bagels, fruit, and coffee, paid for out of his own pocket.
Why?
I asked him one morning. He shrugged. They matter. Most folks only show up when the building's finished. I want to show up while it's still dirt. That hit me harder than I expected. Because I remembered a time, years ago, when I was nothing more than a name on a worn-out punch card. No one cared about my dreams. They just wanted me to clock in and shut up. I wasn't going to let Isaiah disappear into that same shadow. So I made another move. I brought him to our annual Visionary Summit. Big ballroom.
Black tie.
Millionaires, venture capitalists, city officials. I didn't tell anyone who he was. I just invited him as my guest. He showed up in a borrowed suit, looking uncomfortable but sharp. Alara was with me that evening, her first major event since losing her sight. She clung to my arm as we walked through the crowd. "Who's that?" she whispered, catching the voice nearby. "That's Isaiah," I said. She lit up. "Cinnamon Man?" I laughed. "Yeah, that's him." The CEO of another development firm, an old rival, came up to me, eyeing Isaiah suspiciously. "New head of security?" he asked. "No," I said. "He's the future of urban design." The man blinked, then smirked, clearly dismissive. But that night, Isaiah got his first real taste of influence. And when he spoke just briefly during an impromptu Q&A, he stole the room. "I'm not from the world of skyscrapers and polished boardrooms," he began, voice steady, eyes locked ahead. "I'm from the streets that get gentrified and forgotten. My goal isn't just to build buildings. It's to build bridges between people who live in concrete and those who profit from it. And maybe, just maybe, we can start designing with them in mind." The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was reverent. That night, Isaiah received 5 separate business card offers. 2 were investors. One was a startup founder. One was a Harvard-educated architect who asked if Isaiah would consider co-developing a community housing initiative. And me? I just watched it happen. I didn't interrupt. I didn't guide him. I simply watched a man rise into his moment. The next day, Alara said something that stuck with me forever. "Dad," she said, "I think Isaiah sees better than both of us." I swallowed hard. "How do you mean?" "He sees hearts. He knows when someone's hurting. He knew with me. He didn't talk about what I couldn't see. He made me feel normal, like I was whole." That single sentence rewired something in me. All these years, I had tried to fix Alara's blindness like it was a problem, when what she really needed was to be seen. And Isaiah saw her before I ever did. So I asked myself, how many other Isaiahs are out there? How many men and women breaking their backs on job sites, in kitchens, behind the scenes, simply waiting for someone to see them? That was the spark. I called my board and told them I was launching a new division, Second Foundation, a mentorship and training pipeline for overlooked workers in the construction and design industries. We'd provide scholarships, housing assistance, business mentorships, and investment funds for those who'd proven their grit in the field but lacked formal education. The board protested at first, but I didn't back down. I even offered to cut my own salary to seed the first $2 million into the program. And guess who I tapped to lead the charge? Isaiah. He didn't accept right away. Said he didn't feel ready. But I reminded him, "You weren't ready when you helped my daughter. You weren't ready when you redesigned our safety protocols. You weren't ready when you inspired a ballroom of billionaires. But you did it anyway." He said yes. And from that moment forward, things changed, not just for him, not just for me, but for everyone touched by what we built. Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness. One quiet moment under the sun. One forgotten worker feeding a blind little girl to remind the world what real vision looks like. And Isaiah Cole had it in abundance. It's been 5 years since I saw Isaiah hand-feed my daughter under a half-finished scaffold. I've watched a lot of things rise in that time. Steel beams, boardroom valuations, urban towers. But nothing compares to watching a man rise from the dust of obscurity and step into purpose. Isaiah didn't just lead Second Foundation. He revolutionized it. He turned it from a mentorship program into a movement. He brought in veterans with PTSD who'd been sidelined. Young mothers with architectural dreams buried under childcare costs. Ex-felons with clean records but dirty reputations. People society had forgotten, but Isaiah hadn't. And every person he brought in, he knew their stories, their struggles, their strengths. He'd walk the sites with them, not in tailored suits, but in boots and denim. He'd eat with them in trailers, stay late helping them prep for certification exams. He even took 3 interns into his home one winter when they lost theirs. When we opened the first Second Foundation Urban Training Center, he didn't cut the ribbon. He handed the scissors to a 17-year-old who used to sleep in a car with his mom. "This isn't about me," Isaiah said. It never was. That humility, that vision, it rippled. And the irony? While I had the title of billionaire, Isaiah had something far richer. Influence. Not the flashy kind. Not the viral, headline-chasing kind. But the kind that shifts lives quietly, like roots strengthening a forest underground. People ask me all the time, "Grant, why him? Out of all the talent out there, why do you pick a construction worker with no college degree?" And I'd smile because they didn't get it. Isaiah didn't need letters after his name. His life was his resume. His heart was his compass. His impact was his degree. You can't teach soul. And that man had more of it than anyone I'd ever met. One morning, I woke up to find Alara sitting by the window with her headphones in. She'd started composing again, creating tactile soundscapes for blind children using vibrations and harmonic frequencies. Her latest piece? Titled Blueprints in the Dust. A tribute to Isaiah. When I asked her why, she said, "He's the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't broken. Like I was just seeing in a different way." And that's when I truly understood the depth of his influence. Isaiah didn't just give people jobs. He gave them back their dignity. He helped them rewrite their own stories. Then came the day I'll never forget. I had just stepped out of a high-level city planning meeting when I got the call. Isaiah had been rushed to the hospital, collapsed on a site during routine inspections. Heart arrhythmia. No warning signs. No family history. Just a blink.
My heart sank.
I raced there, pushed through the emergency doors like a man possessed. He was conscious, but weak. Machines humming beside him. His skin pale, but his spirit still sharp. "Don't look at me like that," he said, trying to joke. "I'm not dead yet." I couldn't speak, just grabbed his hand. "They say I need a pacemaker," he muttered. "Out of commission for a while." "Then we'll slow down," I said. "You've earned it." He shook his head.
"Can't."
"There's a girl coming in next week, 18, just got out of a system. Wants to be an engineer. She's scared." I promised I'd show up. That's who he was. Even when his heart was failing, he was thinking about someone else's. That night, I made a decision. I stepped down from daily operations and appointed Isaiah as Chief Impact Officer across all my firms. Not just a title, a mandate. His ideas, his programs, his vision would shape the way we built cities, communities, and culture. And despite doctors' orders, he accepted. Not for the money, not for the fame, for the mission. A year later, he gave the keynote speech at our company's 40th anniversary. He walked onto that massive stage, stoic, grounded, and grateful. He looked out into a crowd of executives, engineers, and dozens of graduates from Second Foundation. Then, he said something I'll never forget. "We spend our lives chasing skyscrapers and stock options, but the truth? Real legacy is quiet. It's in the moments no one sees. Like when a child smiles because she no longer feels invisible. Like when a man who's always been underestimated finally sees his own worth. My legacy isn't concrete. It's people." There wasn't a dry eye in that room. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't change Isaiah's life. He changed mine. He taught me that success isn't just about wealth, it's about witnessing. Witnessing the humanity in others. Witnessing the unseen in ourselves. Today, Isaiah runs Second Foundation independently. It's now a nationwide program with over 12,000 lives transformed. Entire communities have been reborn because of the ripple he started with one simple act of kindness. And me? I'm just honored I got to play a part in his journey. I spend more time with Alara now. She's launched a nonprofit for children with visual impairments. One of her interns? A girl whose father was hired by Second Foundation after being released from prison. That's how far the roots have grown. Sometimes, when I visit construction sites, I see new recruits in hard hats reading Isaiah's manual, Rise from the Ground. And occasionally, when no one's watching, I still think back to that dusty afternoon. That cinnamon bun. That gentle voice. The moment my daughter was seen, and so was I. Because sometimes the man who changes everything isn't the one flying first class. It's the one walking home with concrete on his boots, purpose in his chest, and kindness in his hands. That's the kind of man Isaiah Cole was. And still is.